two, three.
Let's go. I love to see the temple. I'm going there someday to feel the Holy Spirit, to listen and to pray for the temple.
It is time for another episode of the Cultural Hall. It has been said before that, hey, Richie, do you like to wait till the last minute to get stuff done? Well, technically, we could probably wait until tomorrow as we record this, because as tradition has been for the last few years, the temples have not been announced until the Sunday afternoon session. Here it is, Saturday morning of the April 2025 General Conference. We're finally getting together, and by we, I mean me and Corey K. Ward, the Pharaoh himself, being able to chat about temple predictions, and this will get published as soon as we're done. But yes, we waited a little bit long, and by we, I mean me. It should have been done. I had great intention. I brought everything to the airport with me in Chicago. I had everything in the hotel, and then I just was like, I don't want to do that while I'm here. I want to do other stuff. So, sorry.
That's what I would do, Richie. Don't be too hard on yourself.
Well, I won't be too hard. I need to give a shout out to the Tiger with the U. Chris, he came through, and now we've got a microphone for Corey K. Ward. We're working on it. There's some other things we got to figure out with it. If you know a great place he can get a desk, that's the next. No, I'm just joking. A huge shout out to Chris, and then also obviously also to Mr. Mayor, who has the connections with the folks to be able to get the microphone, and that's what he does for a living. And you sound good, but now I don't get to see as much of your cute face. We're working on it. That will be a future thing. We've got to talk temples. It's basically here.
Yeah. Like you said, we're expecting maybe temple announcements in Sunday afternoon. This still doesn't seem like they're going to slow down.
I'm saying this will be the biggest ever.
You really think so?
Yes. I think this will be the most temples announced. Here's my thinking. The most temples announced because President Nelson, and I said this in the last Articles of News episode that we posted, it is an inevitability that he will no longer be with us, and everyone will be like, how dare you, right? Ugh, I can't believe that you would say that, right? It is an inevitability, and I think that it's probably sooner more than later. I mean, he's had a phenomenal run. Again, not calling for the death of, but I do see it making sense for him to announce a bunch in anticipation that at the general conference, when he is no longer around, and at this point Elder Oaks becomes President Oaks, they will not do temple announcements, because that seems weird to be like, hey, the death and grieving, and we've had this and all this, and here's 20 temple announcements. Like, I can see us not doing that. So
like, he's more of just like a press release guy. He's just gonna like...
No. I think he'll still do it, and I think they'll still hit that 500 by 2030. But it just seems like a little inappropriate, or like socially something. So I think that we do a bunch, kind of get ahead of that, and that way we can have a general conference where it's just like now,
just kind of like here's welcome to conference. We're gonna make the announcements now.
Yeah.
That was OG President Monson, what he did. He didn't wait for the anticipation.
Yep.
He just upfront, hey, we have some business to conduct. Here's some new temples.
Yeah. So yeah, that's sort of my thought. I also should let you know that part of this fun competition that we will have today is, are you smarter than an AI generated list of 20 temples that will be announced?
Okay.
Chris West, another great, he does a phenomenal amount of things in the background, helps me get interviews and some of the other things that we do. He has sent me a list of, hey, this is what AI said will be the list of 20 places for temples. And admittedly, so some of them are already on the list, so we won't count that. We'll only count the ones that aren't already announced. I guess he didn't have time to edit it, and I didn't have time to fact check it. So
AI doesn't even know which ones are already announced.
Yeah, that's right. So you're already better than AI as far as that goes. But there some of the ones that it's predicting I think are interesting. So it'll be interesting to see if, in fact, it can predict some of the ones that will come out maybe better. So there we go.
Okay.
I think we get to the predictions first, and then we take a break and get back in the second half and do Temple news. I have to ask you though, as we record this, it's super early. What you got that we have to do this so early for?
Just gonna go on a hike later, so
Anything
I have
fun?
to. Anything fun?
Yeah.
Just a kind of a local hike with some friends.
Oh,
So
cool. You
yeah.
know, knowing that you hike, I'll find out who it is while you're telling me about your predictions here in a second. But there is a great general conference talk about hiking Mount Timpanogos that I have always wanted to listen to while I'm hiking Mount Timpanogos and be able to do that. And then lastly, before we get into the temple predictions, I want you to know that it is not missed on me about how many chains you're wearing right now. How is that? Is it three? Are you three? No, you're four chains. Four
Or
chains?
isn't Berlin the four chain?
Yeah, no, I think he's three chain. I don't know. Listen.
No, yeah, he's the three.
Yeah,
It was Meg, right? Or Ashton?
it could have
I
been
don't know.
Molly the Ash. Molly
She's
the
the
Ash
two.
had because it was one oh Taylor one chain, and then I think Molly Ash had two, and then I want to say Verlin rocked three. So now you are Corey the four chain pharaoh.
The richest of them all.
Yeah.
Yep.
One chain to rule them all. All right, let's talk temple predictions.
Okay, so we know that 185 temples have been announced by President Nelson.
Hmm.
It seems like he likes round numbers. So if
Okay.
he's going to go out as a bang, he can still do a conservative amount and just stick it at 15, and he'll be at 200 temples announced.
Yeah. So I'll go I'm saying 22, but I know he'll do at least 15. That's my prediction.
At least 15, but maybe as many as maybe 23, because then that will round the total number of temples to
390.
um 390.
Okay. I could see that. Or let's blow each other's minds here for a second. Let's say he goes 33. No temples are announced in October session because President Nelson is no longer there. I could see that.
Okay, yeah.
All right.
Okay. Well, I have a top 10,
I want
which
it. I want it.
we would hope that if there's that many, then at least all these temples would be announced.
At least all of these.
At least all of them. Last time he announced for the, or I guess he's now announced two temples in Arizona, but I'm guessing for another one. This time Northern Arizona, Flagstaff area, maybe Prescott Valley, if it's a little bit more central for those guys.
Well, I need
Uh,
you to know, AI also said Flagstaff, Arizona.
yeah, definitely one of the most predicted on the internet by commenters, so definitely pick that up. Um, the other one that you've always been predicting, Spanish Fork,
It's coming, baby.
maybe Mapleton, but I know the church has a big plot of land right in front of Maple Mountain High School. There's
It'll
like
be right there.
there's like two churches right like all on this property, two church meeting houses, and then the whole property is owned by the church. So
It'll be right there. Is that so? That's technically Mapleton.
it's Spanish Fork, but
Okay.
it's like
I was
on the
good.
border with Mapleton.
Yeah,
So
where
maybe
it
they'll
meets
name it like the
right.
Maple Mountain Temple or something.
Yep, going right into the canyon, Maple Mountain Temple. I love it. That's a for sure. Take it to the bank. It's done. Where else you got?
Okay, he hasn't announced, or I guess he hasn't announced it in Ecuador, and Ecuador only has two temples, which for Latin America, that's kind of low. So I think Ecuador at least needs a third. I'm guessing Machala, but maybe there's another city that I'm not thinking of better.
Okay. Okay.
Brazil, southern Brazil hasn't, there's still a ton of stakes there, and there hasn't been really any new temple announcements in a while. So the city of Santa Maria recently had a second stake formed there in that city. That's the headquarters of a mission. So that's what I'm guessing, Santa
Who
Maria.
went down there to form the second stake? Do you know?
I don't.
Someone powerful
Normally
enough that.
apostles don't form stakes. They're just Area 70s.
Hmm. Okay.
So, but this place has
Santama.
been kind of rocked by a lot of floods in the last couple of years. So, definitely there's been apostles visiting this area.
Okay. Okay.
We talked about the ones in New Zealand that have been announced, but not all of them have been on the North Island. So I think in the Southern Island, Christchurch is due for a mini temple. And I've talked about this before. Why not have a temple in a city named Christchurch?
Right? One of
Certainly.
Christchurch's temples in Christchurch. It just seems it's great branding.
President Nelson already announced a new temple in Taiwan, but now that's under construction, and so I think one in the middle of the island in Taichung would also be appropriate. And of course, with all those tensions with China and the possibility of, something happening with China, you want to get those temples in before it's too late.
Yeah,
So I'm guessing
yeah.
Taichung, Taiwan. The city in the world with the most stakes without a temple, Port Harcourt, Nigeria. That I've been announcing that. I've been predicting that for a long time. So I think this is
It's
finally that time.
it's got to be. I want to say there was another stake that was formed there, or another ward, or another something. It seems like in the last couple months within the news that we've talked about something being
Definitely.
added there. So none of
There's
these
like,
seem that crazy yet.
yeah, there's like 8 stakes there. So a lot for just one city. Sierra Leone. This has been, it's a little town, but it's a high concentration of LDS, which is kind of rare for Africa. Because a lot of the places where temples are announced are these big cities where there's a lot of members, but they're a small um, minority. But in there's 4 stakes in this little town. There's a mission newly headquartered. I know of a meeting house there that has this huge plot of land next to it. So I can't imagine that's not for a temple. So
Right.
there's already one. There's the first temple being constructed right now in Sierra Leone, but I think shortly we'll get a second. And then also in West Africa, Lome Togo, which is a French-speaking country in between Ghana and Benin, which is in between Nigeria. There's now 3 stakes there, 2 in Benin, and so I think that's a good place for one.
And with the
And
growth that's
then,
going on, we can sort of say, "Hey, let's build this, and they will come." Right. I mean, we're 2, 3, 4 years out on many of these. The growth will just continue.
yeah, most of these temples will take 6 or 8 years to complete. Honestly,
Yeah.
these temples for Africa have been kind of slow. We see the temple in Nairobi just being barely finished right now, and that was the President Nelson temple in his waning days. So, yeah, there could still be a lot of growth in between the time that these are announced and dedicated.
Okay.
And then President Nelson has announced a decent amount in Europe, so I don't think he's going to stop. But the Eastern European country of Albania has 1 stake and has a big travel to any other country.
Hmm.
Right now, they're closest to Rome, but there'll be a temple in Budapest in the coming years. But I still think in Albania to serve Greece, Macedonia, Bulgaria, Serbia, Croatia, Kosovo, all those countries that are very small for the church, but I think in Albania there's a kind of a strong base. So,
Let's do it. Listen. I'm on board with all those. I don't think
okay, yeah.
I don't think there's a one that I go, wait, now wait a minute among them. But now maybe we get to that. This is these you now have listed states without temples, and I think that probably a couple of these will be knocked out this conference.
Yeah, so here's my honorable mentions. I'll go through these a little bit faster. Their last conference, we saw the first one in Wisconsin. There was, I think, another first. I can't remember what it was, but it seems like these states without a temple are being ticked off. New Jersey was the other one.
Hmm.
Um, so for the ones that I think could get a temple this time, Rapid City, South Dakota, just 1 stake, but really isolated. Hours drive to Casper if they want to
Sure.
go there.
And no one
Jackson,
wants
Mississippi.
to go there, to be clear.
Yeah.
Kidding.
Why would you want to go to Rapid City? Okay. Jackson, Mississippi, southern state that doesn't have one yet. We saw Alabama recently got its second, so Mississippi needs one.
That's what AI says. AI says Jackson, Mississippi.
Oh, okay. Anything north of Boston, there's no temple, so there's 3 states up there. So I think probably like Augusta, Maine is right in the middle of everybody in Maine. So that's another good one. And then Charleston, West Virginia. We saw it really close, the temple being announced in Winchester, Virginia.
Hmm.
If it was just placed in Martinburg, it would have been in West Virginia. But I think in the center part of the state where the capital is, I think that's would be appropriate too.
You think we'd get one there? Okay. Okay. I'm going to roll through the AI generated list. And again, a few of these may already exist, but I thought it was interesting to see where some of these were placed. Uh, Mabuji Mai, Democratic Republic of the Congo.
Already announced.
Yeah, Kumasi, Ghana.
Already announced.
Lubanga, Lobongo, Angola. Uh,
Already announced.
Nadjamanina, Chad.
There's no members there, so it would be a stretch.
Yep. It's just what AI
Okay.
says. Bujumbura, Burundi.
Okay.
Medan, Indonesia. Uh, Timor-Leste in Dili. I don't.
There's like one branch there, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Battambang, Cambodia. This is one that I think is particularly interesting to me and to my family in Da Nang, Vietnam, because my grandparents, first missionaries back into Vietnam after the Vietnam War.
Yeah, interesting. It chose that versus like Hanoi or
Yeah.
another place with more population.
Yeah.
But
Listen, it's AI. It's as good as the thing that Papua New Guinea. I don't know how you say the town.
okay, yeah. I
L-A-E,
would
Lai,
maybe go with that one.
San Pedro Sula, Honduras,
Already dedicated,
Iquitos, Peru,
already announced.
Petén, Guatemala, Santiago,
Interesting.
Dominican Republic. That was last time.
Yep.
Neiva, Colombia,
Okay.
Portugal,
Yeah,
uh,
that's a good one, I would say.
Valencia, Spain,
Maybe. Yeah.
Krakow, Poland.
Okay.
And it says Flagstaff and Jackson, Mississippi. So most of those
Interesting.
already done, but I liked the far cry on some of those.
On Chad.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Well,
like
Chad,
that.
and I don't think that there's many members, even though missionaries have been in, Vietnam for 30 years. I don't think that there's many members at all to speak of in
There's not a
Vietnam.
stake yet. So
Yeah.
that's the only thing that holds me off on some of those is that um other than the temple in Shanghai, there's never been a temple announced in a country without a stake. And so that's still maybe that's our next horizon. There's going to be temples in places without a stake,
Hmm.
but right now that's still my limit of like if there's not a stake there, then I'm not going to predict it. So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we all have our standards.
the
For-
other thing I'm predicting is those continuation of those large metro areas that might need a second or third temple.
okay.
So Lima, Peru, Santiago, Chile, São Paulo, Brazil, Kinshasa, Democratic Republic of Congo, maybe central London because the temple in London's way south,
Huh.
and then in the Los Angeles area, Riverside County or Ventura County, I think are kind of
Oh,
on the
interesting.
the
Okay.
end of those ranges. And then also in Idaho, maybe a third one in the Boise area, maybe Caldwell or Nampa.
Huh. That would be because Nampa's kind of what on the north or western side of
Yeah,
Boise.
Caldwell's kind of northwest.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nampa's west. Yeah. We already have
'Cause
one in
what?
Meridian and Boise.
Yeah. Okay. Meridian. Okay. Hmm. And then I like your dark horses here. Let's hear those.
Dark horses. Jamaica, there's one stake there. Trinidad, of Trinidad and Tobago.
Hmm.
Malawi is actually maybe this should be higher up because it's a country in Africa that recently got two stakes organized.
Well, then of course, let's go. And they've got the great pizza that everyone in Utah County loves.
There we go. Everyone will cheer for that because of that. Another one in Zimbabwe. The one in Zimbabwe is being completed soon, so maybe one in Bulawayo, which already has three stakes. Hobart, Tasmania, Australia. Shout out to Joseph Smith, Sharon, Vermont. Like you could maybe put a mini temple on that site.
Yeah, maybe would that take the place of like the Augusta, Maine? Would that be? I
It
know that
could,
that
but
would be
I think
closer,
maybe
but
both would be probably still in the reach of the church.
okay, more likely.
In East Texas, maybe Longview or Gilmer, which
Hmm.
is where, like in the early 1900s, some members of the church settled there in a town called Kelsey. So maybe a little heritage there.
Hmm.
And then another dark horse, Rigby, Idaho, which is already close to like three temples, but I think there's enough members moving to Rigby that it could probably support its own temple.
Give Rigby a temple. Let's do it. I'll move that up. Spanish Fork
Birthplace of
Rigby. Come on.
television, birthplace of television. So why not give him a
Well,
temple?
because of Philo T. Farnsworth.
That's right. All the Utahns like to claim him, but he was really born in Rigby.
Yeah, but he lived in Parowan. And you know what? His statue, it's not in Washington, D.C. anymore. So,
They took it down because
yep.
he's technically from Idaho.
Yeah.
So
I don't think that's actually why they took him down.
it's part of the reason it was.
Was it really?
Part of the reason they wanted to put Martha Keys Cannon there, but there was also kind of like, well, is this guy, he's kind of Idahoan, so he's
Well,
not as
I think,
Utahn as Martha.
but they didn't give the statue over to Idaho like we gifted, you know.
They could have took it. I don't know. I don't know who they have out there. Probably
Yeah,
someone boring.
Throwing shade on Idaho. They probably got someone pouring. I'm sure that Utah, for people who don't know, there's a place where there's two statues. Every state gets two statues. And we looked at it and went, Brigham Young is one of ours. By the way, not born in Utah. If we want to go, state of origin. But they looked at it and went, Brigham Young, oh yeah, we're keeping him. Who else we got? Philo T. Farnsworth is the other one. Of course, they're gonna give him the boot. Who does Idaho have? It looks like you just looked it up.
Um, you have William Edgar Bora.
Sure.
Just some guy that has a mountain named after him.
Hmm.
I for some reason I can't even find the other one.
All right. We'll take a break and we'll find the
George
second one.
Laird. I don't know. I don't even know
Who
who
is
that
it?
is. George Laird.
Okay. We got to find out who these people are, and we got to talk temple news. We'll take a break and we'll come back in the second half and do actual temple news in the temple ticker. It's all about temples of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints right before literally this is going to be published, and then it'll be like from the crossroads of the West. Let's go. Here we go. Coming back in the second half with actual news. Let me take just a moment to tell you all about bestdjinutah.com. That is the website where you can learn all about me. Oh, sure, you probably feel like you know me, but you know me in the cultural hall sense. I have a DJ company, now 6 of us strong, great event hosts, MCs, and DJs that can be able to make whatever event you have coming up absolutely spectacular, and hope you will reach out to us. Now you're thinking, well, wait a minute, Richie, I don't live in Utah. Would you travel? Absolutely, I would travel. Would they travel? Absolutely, they would travel. Whatever your event is, doesn't have to be a wedding or a community event. We can do all sorts of things. I can teach you line dancing. I can dance with you. We can do partner dancing. We can do all kinds of things, but we can't do any of it if you don't hit me up. You can go to bestdjinutah.com. You can fill out the form to get more information or get a quote, and then I will get right back to you. Find out why I'm so busy and why sometimes we don't get episodes of the Cultural Hall. It's all because of bestdjinutah.com. Here in the second half of the Temple Ticker, we talk Temple news, but before we get too far away from it, who are those two individuals? Who is William Bora and who is George L. Shoup? Well, the first governor ever of Idaho is who George L. Shoup is. So, okay, I get a case for it. A fantastic mustache, born in Pennsylvania. His spouse was Magdalena. They called her Lena Darnitzer Shoup. So I'll take every bit of that. I'll take every bit of who that guy is. And then the other one, William Bora, progressive senator from the state of Idaho. He was known for his major role at the end of World War I in preventing, and then it stopped going on. So I don't know what he prevented.
Idaho, do you really want a progressive representing you in the Capitol?
Idaho?
Come on, take our Philo Teach Farnsworth statue, claim that as your own, because it is. Get rid of this progressive
Yeah, come on,
Bora.
Idaho. You want to go down knowing forever that yeah. He prevented the United States from joining the League of Nations and the World Court. William Edgar Bora did. Yeah.
Maybe he's more like Idaho then. He's more like the Republicans of today.
Yeah, guys, take our statue. Come on. It's out in the desert of Las Vegas. You can see it with all the neon tree, all the neon tree signs and all those things. Okay. Now we go to temple news of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and we rededicated. Let's go.
Yeah, the Toronto, Ontario temple was rededicated. It was the 44th temple originally, but it's been closed for the last 2 years or so. But President Jeffery Holland one of the 12 apostles, president, was there to dedicate it on Sunday, March 23rd. And Toronto has an interesting history of leaders of the church because that's where both President Nelson and President Ballard were mission presidents.
Okay.
So a lot of members of the church had close connections to there. I don't know specifically if Elder Holland had any. But yeah, it looked kind of like just like a typical rededication ceremony.
As far as the temple goes itself, not a lot new on the inside, just sort of a refurbishing and that kind of thing.
Yeah, nothing. Mostly just refurbishing is what I can tell. So they may have reconfigured a few things to be a little bit more efficient. for movement in the temple. But yeah, Elder Holland, his main quote to come out of the temple dedication was that let's see, he says that something like we owe our ancestors time in the temple. So
Hmm.
that was his message.
It's a fair point. I feel like we can say we owe it. Why not? Uh, Interesting. Just quick aside, I got to visit with Elder Holland the Younger uh,
Matthew
a couple
or
weeks ago. Matthew, the
the
former
GA.
president of UVU and one of the general authorities,
Okay.
and I got to. He was waiting for oh, which apostle? Why can't I think of what his name is? The really rich one from Logan. What's that one? Why can't I think of his name? The one that was on the iPhone
Stevenson.
board.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, yeah, Stevenson. He
Uh-huh.
was waiting for Elder Stevenson, and I did the approach of it's like, yeah, apostles, they'll sure take forever, huh? And so I was standing and visiting with him, talking about how, and from his perspective, how very close his father was to death. I thought that was fascinating. He's like, yeah, we were rallied.
It was like
We
a
had
month
all gathered
coma.
together. We had sort of done the, all right, he's going off to be with mom kind of thing. Like it was an interesting dimension to that I was unaware of. Like we hear it, and certainly he is reflected, knocking on death's door, but you don't really know how close. He's like, yeah, family gathered, let's go. We are not that they wanted him to be no longer with us, but that they had gathered and said,
They
we're done.
prepared.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
they
they
had
lost
prepared
just
for it.
lost their mom a few months earlier, so
Yeah. So anyway, that was more of a name drop. That's why I told that story. That's all.
yeah.
Okay. So then, Farmington, New Mexico, dedication is announced.
Yeah. This temple will be dedicated on my birthday, August 17th.
Happy birthday in August.
Elder Neil Anderson will be there. This will be I have my spreadsheet. It will be um his fifth temple to be dedicated,
Okay.
that he's dedicated.
And this will be
The
number what?
203.
Okay. All right.
If, well, yeah, most likely. If there isn't any dedications announced before then, probably not. I would think
Okay.
they would be after because they're going to have a July and August open house, July 17th to August 2nd, media day on the 14th of July, which is kind of rare because they haven't, like, most of the time the general authorities and employees of the church have vacation on that time. So someone's working during vacation. So
Well, I mean, they get to go to New Mexico, which is nice. It seems like that's a hot time to be in New Mexico.
yeah, you're right.
Though, admittedly, I don't know much about New Mexico, but Arizona is ghastly hot at that time. So,
Yeah, well, Farmington is in the northwest corner, so by Four Corners, kind of by a lot of the Navajo Reservation area. So it has the temple design has a lot of Native American motifs in it. So we'll talk more about that when we do the open house.
okay. Okay. Groundbreakings.
Yeah, there's a groundbreaking held in Cali, Colombia. The church finally demolished that school that was on the site,
Mm-hmm.
and now they're ready to start construction. So, Elder Jorge T. Becerra was there, and he on March 3rd. So yeah, I don't really see any. You talked about the parable of the sower. I don't know. It seemed like a pretty typical. There's some local media there. Um, and will be the third temple in Colombia.
That's pretty awesome. Anta, I can't say it. Madagascar.
Antananarivo, Madagascar Temple. This is the one located right next to the U.S. Embassy there in the capital city. Elder Denelson Silva was there to preside over the groundbreaking. It was on March 17th, and it's the first one for this country. Looks like missionaries arrived there 35 years ago in 1990.
Wow.
And there's now three stakes in the country. So
A beautiful temple right now. It's interesting to just see the field with a little, white tent is all
yeah.
it was.
And I had previously said that they were probably demolishing the meeting house,
Mm-hmm.
but they were holding they held the little ceremony on the site next to the meeting house. So maybe they're not going to demolish the meeting house. So
Hmm. I'll be interested to see how you pronounce this temple because I'm judging you if you say it wrong.
We got the Birmingham.
Oh, come on. It's the Birmingham, England temple.
Birmingham.
Birmingham, England.
Yeah, this is the first temple that President Nelson has announced that has had a groundbreaking. So there's been like 10 temples announced in Europe, but this is finally the first one to have a groundbreaking after the Lisbon, Portugal temple in 2015. So it's been about 10 years. Scott D. Whiting, the Europe North area, was there to preside. Um, they had part of it in the meeting house, which is right on the temple site. Um, I didn't link this, but yesterday I saw a local news story that a local construction company had been awarded the contract for this temple. They said they're going to demolish the mission office, which is right there, but then the meeting house will be renovated. So it looks like they're going to save that on the site.
Hmm.
But the mission will need to have a new headquarters because this temple will take the place of that.
So, is there any speculation that the mission headquarters will now be somewhere else?
It's possible they could be a build. They could maybe just rebuild it on the side. Maybe the renovation for the meeting house is to include a mission office
Oh, could be,
in
could
it or next
be.
to it. So yeah,
Interesting in the groundbreaking pictures for the Birmingham Temple. Um, it looks like maybe a Sikh gentleman is helping with the groundbreaking. As you look at the pictures, maybe that's
definitely. They like to invite local faith leaders to the groundbreaking, so they can kind of
it's an
buy
awesome
into
picture.
the construction as well, make it be more of a community event.
Yeah, cool. Okay, I'm on board so far. Which takes us to temple groundbreakings announced.
Yes, there's been a slurry of new temples announced for groundbreaking. Long time coming, Lagos, Nigeria. This has been like one of the temples with the longest wait time so far to have finally start construction. This is one of the first ones that President Nelson announced, like in 2018. It will have a groundbreaking on May 10th, and Elder Alfred Kayungo will be the presiding authority. I believe he is native Nigerian, so
That's
that's pretty cool.
awesome.
Um, and then also announced just like 6 months later, Benin City, Nigeria, um, on the May 24th, will have a groundbreaking. Elder Adeyinka Ojederan, I don't know, something like
Hmm.
that.
Hmm.
He'll be the one to announce or to be presiding over that groundbreaking. I believe he's not Nigerian, but he's from somewhere in Africa. Um, I just looked it up. He is from uh no, he's the one that's from Nigeria. The other guy, I think, is the one from the Democratic Republic of the Congo, but they're both
Okay.
serving in the West Africa presidency. And then both these temples also had renderings released. So you got to see what these temples will look like. The one in Lagos, if you know the one in Sierra Leone, how that looks like. This one looks pretty similar, except it has kind of a more elongated cupola on the top. That's one story, kind of a white color, kind of a gray cupola, gray windows. The one in Benin City is going to be a two-story one, kind of the size of that new one we saw in Mexico City. But yeah, definitely screaming themes of Africa, kind of a more gray granite um, with a tall spire on the top, the gold, kind of a gold, off gold color. Some really cool motifs on it too. This will be the largest temple in Africa when it's completed,
That's
larger
awesome.
than the one in Johannesburg, South Africa. So
Which then takes us to Brazil. I'm just sort of clicking through some of these like renderings of what they look like. This one in Brazil, although I'm sure you'll be like, no, it's more like whatever. The sort of arches, it's sort of what does it feel like? As I'm looking at it, I feel like a leaning nod to the Bountiful Temple with all of the arches, but I'm sure you'll say, no, it's way more like the whatever, but very like I don't know, seems very arch influenced around the windows and things.
okay. That's fine. It's in Natal, Brazil. I think it's more square arch, not
Sure,
really.
like
Bountiful has more rounded arches.
definitely, but it seems like those arches, or I guess arches is probably not the right word since they're square, but whatever that is, seems like a much higher focus than at some of these other temples. Because it seems like the around the encasings around the windows, those or whatever, just feels like way more intentional than in some of the other ones. I don't know.
I gotcha. Yeah, this will be, we didn't say it's in Natal, Brazil, in case you served your mission there. There'll be a groundbreaking on May 17th, and Mark D. Eddy will be the presiding authority there. The next groundbreaking is the Budapest Hungary Temple. They'll have a groundbreaking on June 20 or June 21st, and Ruben V. Ayuad will be the presiding authority on that. So we previously saw this rendering as well, but it's going to be a one-story temple, kind of a sandstone color.
So at least a couple of months, at least at this point, from here on out, probably, right? Where Budapest is in June, there'll probably be another one announced in June, and we just roll out. We've got all the things going on in July. Let's go.
Yeah, I'm sure there'll be more in the late summer, early fall. Probably see those announced soon after general conference.
So the site's announced. I know I want to be sensitive to your hiking time as you
Oh, we're
go.
fine.
Let's get to Guatemala. I saw this announced just the other day.
Yeah, the Retalhueco Guatemala Temple. They announced the site. There'll be a 5.5-acre site, basically on the main highway, just north of Retalhueco, kind of near the town of San Sebastian. But yeah, it looks like there's a kind of a just some guy's big property with a house that they'll probably demolish, and there'll be a temple there. And they also announced released the rendering of this temple, which it's one of these no spire temples.
Hmm.
Kind of has a flat top. Um, it's definitely going over the Mayan heritage of Guatemala, just like the temple in nearby Quetzaltenango and the one that was announced in Huehuetenango. It's going after that more boxy Mayan temple feel. So I like it a lot.
Interesting to note, as you just sort of said and then and left it, like in America, we love our spires, we love our steeples, but in South America, we're like, nah, we're fine. We don't need to go to court for that, and that's sort of alluding to stories that we'll get to. Any reason why that is? Is it just the architecture, or why do we feel so compelled to make sure we've got the spire here in the United States where we maybe don't down there?
I think most of it is just we don't like the government telling us how to design our buildings.
Hmm.
And so if we want to like fit in with the local Mayan architecture where they have flat top buildings, like we'll do that. We want to do that. Where in Texas, if we want to have a big church with a big spire, that's how Americans like it, big spires, I guess. I don't know. And so I think the biggest thing is just like the church wants to build this design as it is. They want to go after the local heritage. And so if flat top isn't the design choice there, then we want to kind of do what we want, I think is more what it says. Although
So,
like we have the one in Meridian, Idaho, which is more like a dome. We have the one in Tucson, which is more of a dome. But
mhm.
they were kind of going after like in Meridian, they're going after the prairie style, which is kind of like the Cardston Alberta temple. They were trying to do that in Arizona, in Tucson. They were just trying to go after kind of the local. They had kind of a lot of domes there, so I think really the church just wants to kind of have its own design and not anyone tell them what to do about it. So, because it takes a lot of money to then go back and redesign and do all
Sure.
this and takes more time. And so if we can just get our design that we want, then that's what they would like.
So it's sort of Texas's fault, really,
I
then,
mean,
because Texas likes everything bigger, and we're like, okay, Texas, we'll do it
yeah.
bigger, and then they're like, yeah, 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 but not you guys. I mean, I know we're skipping over some news, but since we've sort of gone full into this, um, the church has reapplied for Texas. Tell me where this story is at. They said no thanks, and we said we'll sue you. And then they were like, "Well, just be who you guys were said you were going to be." And we're like, "Yeah, sure, fine. You guys be who you said you're going to be." And then we finally said, here's a different design. We'll do this.
Yeah, it looks like there was the mayor talking one side of his mouth. There was the council that was also, the mayor seemed like he was always willing to compromise. And he said he was even wanted to come to Utah to settle. But it
Hmm.
seemed like the council kind of buckled to some pressure to some people who still didn't want the temple, even at the redesign.
Hmm.
So then the church went again to sue. And then they're like, okay, we mean it this time. And then it looks like the church responded that, yeah, we really believe you guys this time. Hint, hint. You better you better do what you say. And then they're like, okay, we'll do what we say. And then the church said, okay, well, here's a new rendering of the temple. So they released a new rendering of the temple, one story. I think it's really funny because it looks, they definitely reused the design because those architects of the church or wherever consulting company they got, they definitely just re copy pasted a lot of the spire, kind of the designs around the top of the building, the arch kind of motif.
Hmm.
They recycled that into this new one-story temple. So I like how fast they could act with that. Um, but yeah, it's gonna be the same size as the one that they're building in Fort Worth right now. Same in Austin. So I think it does fit. I think with the number of stakes, it's still fine. They wanted a bigger temple because I think they anticipated more growth in the area. But I think they're saying, it's fine for now. If we need another temple in the Dallas area, we'll build one, I guess, is what
And
probably their
in the
calculus
link, you
was.
can see both renderings. So you can click for yourself and go, oh, that's how it was. Oh, that's how it is. Okay.
Yeah, and these are two very common floor designs that the church has been using. Um, so it was really kind of just a copy paste. I'm sure it's more complex than
Sure.
that.
Yeah. All,
But
all the architects are like, oh, Corey,
they at
Corey.
least they at least reused all the motif aspects and all those like designs that they probably spent a lot of time doing. And so
Yeah.
they just kind of put it on a smaller building.
Yeah, very beautiful temple. Very beautiful. All right, we'll go back and catch up some things because some matrons and presidents were called. If we can, and I know that it's probably tradition that we call them matrons and presidents, I would like it if we just call them presidents because both are presidents, but I understand how
And
to
yeah,
do it.
I say matrons and presidents to instead of presidents and matrons, if
Yeah,
that's
that's right.
any indication.
Philippines, both of these in the Philippines, which means here we go. Those get dedicated pretty quick once we get presidents and
I
matrons
think
called.
so.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think within the next 6 months or so, they'll have a temple and dedication announcement. The first one's in Alabang, Philippines, which is kind of the southern part of the Manila area. This was one of the last ones announced by President Monson.
Hmm.
So it's a long time coming, but it looks like the scaffolding's starting to come down. Temple's starting to be work on the inside. So the temple president will be someone local from the Las Piñas stake nearby, Jocelyn Dunlap and or uh, Ellison and Romeo Ellison will be the president and matron of this temple. And then going south in the very south island in Davao, the matron and president will be, sorry, also Jocelyn. Her name is also Jocelyn, but Cabrera and Edgar Cabrera will be the president. So interesting that both of those matrons that are being called are named Jocelyn.
Yeah, and interesting that that doesn't feel like a Filipino name to me. Not that I know what is or what isn't, but I would be curious to know the history of
Well,
why
the
somebody.
Philippines is very influenced by American English and Spanish.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
so there's a lot of names like Las Piñas is, the pineapples. There's a
Hmm.
lot of Spanish names, and then there's because it was occupied by the Spaniards, and then it was occupied by the Americans. So there's English is widely spoken, and so you have that mix between Spanish, English, and Asian influences in the Philippines makes an
Okay.
interesting
Yeah.
culture.
So let him be named Jocelyn. Got it. I get it. You don't have to be so aggressive. I got it. They can be named
Okay.
Jocelyn. Jeez, I hear you. All right. And then we're rounding some updates out now. Let's get to Salt Lake Temple.
Flag
Certainly a bunch
Temple.
about that.
Yeah, the southwest corner of Temple Square was recently reopened. That's the area by the Assembly Hall. It's been closed for the last like year or so.
Hmm.
Well, they've been renovating the grounds. So now that whole area by the Tabernacle is open up. So that really opens up Temple Square more than it has been before. Now you mostly just have the temple area that's under construction. And I guess the Joseph Smith Memorial Building and the Beehive House is still under construction, but still a lot more areas to walk by than you were able to before. We saw a few updates as well, some new photos of the interior. We saw some new pictures of the baptistry, of the celestial room, all those details of the grapes hanging from the ceiling, which I really like of this temple.
Hmm.
We saw what the ceiling rooms, the hall of the ceiling rooms will look like. So that was pretty cool. There's also new statues, like they put back the one of Joseph Smith and Oliver being getting the Melchizedek priesthood. They also this week they unveiled a statue of I believe it was the five wise virgins. So this is like the first statue, or maybe one of the first statues to have women in the statue. So that's a big thing. The Camilla and Johnson was there to talk about that.
Pretty significant too. The metal work, it's odd. I'll be curious to see how this ages. But like there's blue flame around the flames that the virgins are holding with their lamps. I wonder if that's going to weather very well. The rest of it looks to be like standard statue color. I'll be curious to see if we can make it last and stay that way or how they do it. It's a fascinating. There's a whole video about it talking about the different aspects of it being there and it being installed and all that. But yeah, the flames themselves blue. Weird.
Nice. Yeah, I think these will be a main kind of once Temple Square is finished, this will kind of be like go around, see all the statues. So yeah.
Off the top of your head, do you know will the seagull statue stay there?
I think
That was
so. I think
it
it's
was
still there.
right.
I don't think they've ever moved it.
Yeah, that one was my favorite. You get out of the assembly hall and then it's just right in front of you there. And then interesting, you have this sort of notated. It will be like when the temple is open for open house. It will be like there is a jazz game every single day in downtown Salt Lake for 6 months.
Yeah, they're predicting 3 million visitors, which would be about 22,000 per day, and I'm sure the weekends would be even more than that. So the business community is saying, hey, prepare. I'm sure there'll be new restaurants popping up around City Creek. In that time, all the empty stores in City Creek will be filled because
Hmm.
I know that's where everyone goes afterwards. Everyone in Main Street's hoping they'll also come there, support the local businesses.
If you would like to join my company, Corey K. Ward the Pharaoh, starting a company for from April to October. I don't know what we're going to call it yet, but we're going to be offering tours, specialty tours to people that come to Utah from other places. It is the tour that you don't get when you come to Utah. That's what we're going to be pitching it as. You want to see an architecture tour of downtown Salt Lake? That's what Corey K. Ward will take you on. Or you want to know the things that they're not telling you about? We'll tell you on whatever the name of the tour company tour is.
Okay.
Done. You're hired. Rigorous hiring process. Vancouver, Washington.
Yeah, for some reason the church just like released a press release saying, "Hey, we got some approvals and we're gonna do some preliminary construction," which this happens all the time for temples. They don't release a press release about it, so I don't necessarily know why what's so special about Vancouver about why they did this, but they're starting construction even though there's no groundbreaking yet. So
Hmm.
maybe some local media inquired about it, so they're like, "Okay, we'll release something." And then in Heber Valley, the lawsuit that has been going on will be held in June. We talked earlier that it's like a summary judgment one, so there'll be a judgment pretty fast. Don't have to do all the trial stuff and all that. So
The imagery with stories is pretty funny. I don't know why I am particularly fascinated with this in this episode about it, but in the Heber Valley one, it's like here's the community center, and all the signs that they have are like too bright, too tall, and they're just printed out on neon pieces of paper. But that's that. And then in Cody, Wyoming, the guy looking forlornly over the temple grounds is wearing a t-shirt that says bad fit and has a picture of the temple on the back of his t-shirt.
it
So
does. When I
funny.
first saw his shirt, I'm like, they look like an EFY shirt with a temple on the back. And
Right.
then
It
when I
does.
saw the word, when I finally read the words, I was like, okay, it's a protest, but like, it's interesting they had that on there. Yeah, there was also a story from about the construction of the Cody, Wyoming temple, which is happening fast. It's already got its steeple up to 101 feet, which is what was promised.
Hmm.
And they have some construction photos around the community to kind of show what the view looks like. You can't see the temple from the historic downtown, so a lot of people are glad about that. But a lot of people that have homes around there are saying, "Oh, this doesn't fit." This one person has just the most fantastic view of the temple in his backyard, but it ruins his mountain view, which I know people think they're entitled to the property next to them and the view will never change, but
Hmm.
there's a property owner next to you that also has the right to build on there. I know maybe it shouldn't be 101 feet, but it is what it is, I guess now. They said, I don't even know why it was built here. And the story says it was the land was donated by a longtime member of the church who had a lot of oil money in the founding of the city of Cody. And so that's why it's there because it was donated. But yeah, they're just, people are still not trying to get over I guess, the change.
But
A lot of signs around town talking about how, Jesus can't turn a blind eye. Maybe Joseph Smith can, but yeah.
yeah, I was just reading that sign. I'll read it verbatim because it's interesting. Joseph Smith may turn a blind eye, but Jesus knows this residential zoning exception is the result of city corruption and collusion with a private interest. Where is that city planner? Honest, honorable, holy? I mean, it did end up, if I remember correctly, that there was a little bit of like shady stuff with the city planner.
And that was released, that was in the trial with the Supreme Court. That's what
Yeah.
had been released in the trial. So,
And then they're like, yeah, but also, we're building.
yeah, I mean, I can't make any excuses for it. I can't.
Yeah.
But it is what it is now. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Okay. We got what? We did the Texas. Okay. So if people want to play along with their own their own temple predictions, they can find a link to that in the show notes.
yeah, I have a bracket that I do every year. So just circle the ones you think will be announced, and if you advance one that's announced, then I guess more kudos to you.
Well, and if you do more, if you pick better ones than Corey, let us know. Contact at theculturalhall.com. Certainly AI has done its job predicting ones that have already been announced. Way to go, AI. We'll see how many you've got right, and then we'll be able to do another episode later this weekend, I hope, Corey. Once we know what the list is, we'll be able to run them down. We'll get together and do that as soon as we possibly can, so that people can know, oh, this is why this is where this is what? I had no idea. I thought this would never come to pass, because everything in the church comes to pass. We'll talk about all that. So look forward to that future episode. Enjoy the hike. I hope that you enjoy General Conference. And then I mentioned this in an episode, but I would be particularly interested about you. Like these behind the scenes, like getting ready for General Conference, and these behind the scenes other videos that have been done. Have you seen these?
I haven't.
Okay. But I know that you are one that would be able to come up with some ideas. I met the people who made those when I was at this conference this last week, and they're like, what else would you guys want to know about? And I was like, oh, I know who I need to talk to. Corey K. Ward, the Pharaoh. He would love to see some behind the scenes something. So put your mind onto what you would like to see. Like maybe like to me, there's a certain amount of fascination. I don't want hours of it, but like, this is what the temple goes through from announcement to now we've got to find the land, like we take the little, I think that could be kind of an interesting thing.
Yeah, I wish they would release more about that.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So things like that, let me know. And anyone listening to this, contact at theculturalhall.com. If you know where we can get Corey a desk that he can attach his microphone to so that he doesn't have to keep playing with it with his head, you have to be a YouTube subscriber to see that. We'll get you something. I've got to have something. Is there room if I got you a desk from the Deseret Industries?
Maybe.
Yeah, okay. We'll find something. People in my ward are putting stuff out in the road all of the time. I'll find something like that. Perfectly good things. I live in the weirdest neighborhood. They just put it in the road and then put a little sign on it for free. And then the next day, it's gone. So we'll get you something. Hope that this episode has nourished and strengthened your body.
Yep, that if you weren't able to listen to this episode, you'll be listening to the next episode.
And then when the time comes, you'll be able to travel home in safety. In the meantime, Chris at Alpine Lakes Travel, Debbie Wanless, Chocolate Cake Bites Podcast, and the Tiger with a U will be saving a seat for you
on the back row
of the
Cultural Hall.
Save me a seat, it's sure to be neat on the back row. We really gotta go on the Cultural Hall show.